when you take a look at the video that was released in Mar-a-Lago announcing the beginning of this conflict, it was just extraordinarily low energy. Now people can say because it was at 2 a.m. and after a long day. Do you remember when Donald Trump was campaigning for president? He was putting in unbelievably long days. I mean, he was just traveling here, there, and everywhere. But he would finish each day doing a rally. And these rallies were high energy events. And whether you liked the guy or not, you just had to sit there and go, wow, there's some energy there. And you could see he was excited, forceful. Announcing this war, he was just low energy, not enthusiastic. And he's been that way ever since. I think that this is a conflict that was thrust upon him. There's a story going around when Bill Clinton first met with Benjamin Netanyahu after he became president. When it was done, he was shouting at his staff, who the hell does he think he is? I'm the president of the United States. How can he talk? But the point is, as far as Benjamin Netanyahu is concerned, you're just a client. You're a client of the Israeli enterprise, and you're here to do Israel's bidding. And I think, Benjamin Netanyahu visited Donald Trump. That's when apparently the decision for this conflict was made. After that point, Trump began the diplomatic perfidy, using diplomacy as a way to have Iran drop its guard yet again before a surprise attack. But he, as Garland said, he was confronted by, his generals who said no, but it was too late. He had already said yes. He had already told Netanyahu yes, that it was going to happen. He was trapped by a number of things. I've said this before, that once you start deploying that many troops into the region, the war becomes automatic. The decision's already been made. And so here's a situation where I think many people are telling him that this is a bad idea. And I think deep inside he knows it's a bad idea, but he was trapped. He literally, had already made the decision. There was nothing to get out. So I don't see this president being in love with this war. And I think you're going to see not just continued low energy, but he's going to start to lash out, because I think he understands that unless a miracle happens, his presidency is over, literally. I mean, we speak of regime change. This is not only the end of Donald Trump's presidency, because he will lose the midterm elections, but he's probably going to lose the midterm elections decisively, not just losing the House, which guarantees impeachment, but losing the Senate, which could bring about conviction. Donald Trump is literally staring a jail cell in the face. Everything that he fought for is about, has been put at risk here. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I think that's what you were looking at. You're looking at a man coming to grips with the fact that he was compelled to make a decision that will be the end of his political legacy.
Well, speaking of this, some weird things happen in Saudi Arabia that I have to point to, because there have been strikes all over. One of the things with Scott here, who made these attacks? The Iranians were saying that they did not attack the embassy in Saudi Arabia. What is happening here? Was that Mossad, or what is going on?
Well, a couple of things. So far, I have not seen any attacks that the Iranians have made that they have denied. They've been pretty open. We hit this. In fact, prior to the beginning of this operation, they specifically said what they were going to hit, and they've been pretty consistent with hitting the things that they said they were going to hit. So I suspect that there is a certain level of desperation. I suspect there's some false flag operations, either U.S. intelligence or, perhaps British intelligence, perhaps Israeli intelligence. But it would only make sense that there would be some intelligence operations and some false flag operations going on, such as this. I don't know. Again, the fog of war, you really don't know. Additionally, at times there are drones that could be fired by, for instance, there's various groups in Iraq that are, kind of private militia kind of things. You never know who any of those could fire at. So there's a lot of various parties that could have fired. Could be false flags. And again, it could be various militia groups who are firing here. And this is the fog of war. There's going to be munitions flying all over the place, and you're not always going to know where they came from.
Okay. Scott?
I mean, there's just not enough data for me to draw a conclusion one way or the other. What we do know is that Iran has made a decision that there's not going to be an escalation ladder, that they're not going to start low and escalate up, that they went all out at the beginning. We know that the United States and Israel's goal and objective is the end of the Iranian government, the collapse of the Iranian regime. Iran's goal is, because this is existential, it's not just survival. Iran is looking to win, and victory will be measured by driving the United States out of the Middle East. Iran's goal is to destroy the totality of the military infrastructure, all of the bases, destroy, not damage, destroy. And also eliminate the American diplomatic footprint. So you see extensive attacks against embassies, consulates, CIA stations, etc. And so, the attack on Riyadh would be consistent with that target deck. As Garland said, it's not just Iran, but there are other actors out there that are sympathetic to Iran that could have done this. I don't know about false flags and things of that nature. Forensically, it's just when a Shahed 136 hits a target, it leaves debris, and I don't know how good the Mossad is. Can they doctor that scene and get away with it? Because it's not just about making something blow up; it's about making something blow up convincingly. So there's too much unknown there. What I will say is that the Iranians are engaged in a war-winning strategy designed to excise the American cancer from the Middle East, and all the targets that are being hit seem to do that. Look at Aramco. The signal that they're sending is that, they've struck Qatari natural gas. They're not producing natural gas right now. They stopped shipping it. That's where Europe gets its gas nowadays. That's where the rest of the world. It's not being shipped. Look at the price of gas going through the roof. They're blowing up the pipeline that the United Arab Emirates used to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Look at England. The price of gasoline doubled. They blocked the Strait of Hormuz. That's 22% of the world's energy not moving. They've said not a single barrel of oil is going to make it to market out of the Middle East. They're strangling not just the world, but they're strangling the Gulf Arab states as well, whose economies are totally dependent upon this. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was Iran, because it's consistent with the Iranian goal and objectives.
Well, here's something I wanted to show you guys as well. Saudi Arabia abandoned, and I want to get your take on that. You guys go ahead and jump in.
Well, a message to the side chick. The U.S. ain't leaving her wife for you. I'm sorry. I know they said that, Israel's over. I'm going to leave her and I'm going to go. No, that's not the way it works. You're being used. You're there for one reason only, and you're being used for that reason. And right now, they're going home. Oh, there's something wrong. Oh, there's a snowstorm coming. They're going home to their wife. Shovel your own snow. Handle your own business. You are there to be used. And shockingly, what the shock to me is that they expected something else. They are an expendable asset. Welcome to the real world. Good. I'm glad to see them learn this.
Scott.
Yeah, I can't come up with a better analogy than that, so I'm going to let Garland run with that one. But it's the truth. The Gulf Arab states for several decades now have been hiding behind this. First of all, the thing that makes them relevant in the world is, wealth, and they have a lot of it because of the energy. So they're very rich. Stability that comes with the wealth, and security. And the security comes from the shield provided by the United States. The United States has sold them billions of dollars of modern weaponry, and the United States has a military presence in the Gulf that dates back to Jimmy Carter and the Carter Doctrine about deploying American military resources to protect, the energy of the Persian Gulf from the Soviets, from the Russians, from the Iranians. That was it. Look at the United Arab Emirates. It's not just Saudi Arabia. The United Arab Emirates spent $2 billion on American ballistic missile defense systems. And, when they bought it, they were thinking, Operation Desert Storm type missile expenditures. During Operation Desert Storm, the Iraqis fired 49 Scud missiles during the entire conflict into Israel. Iran fires that in an hour. So they bought all these missile interceptors, and now they're dealing with the fact that they're running out on day 3. And so they turned to the United States and said, we need more interceptors. And the United States won't even answer their call because in the United States, because one, the United States is running out of them, but more importantly, Israel's running out of them. So the United States is getting ready to draw down our defensive capabilities in Korea, Japan, and the Pacific at a time when, according to the National Security Strategy document, we're supposed to be seeking conventional military overmatch of China, meaning we're supposed to be intimidating the Chinese into not doing anything in the South, China Sea or in Taiwan because we're so overwhelmingly militarily powerful. And now we're just going to draw down those defenses, and they're not going to our Gulf Arab allies. Again, Garland hit it just right. These people thought that the U.S. was going to leave their wife and take him home as a trophy wife, and they turned out that the U.S. isn't leaving their wife. Israel is there, and these people are left alone, and this is the reality. But this is going to play into the hands of Iran, because now that there's this wake-up call with the Gulf Arab states, when they realize not only that they've been left at the altar, so to speak, but that there's no future. The United States it was all a lie, this concept of a security shield, et cetera. The United States will never be able to protect them. I think the Gulf Arab states are going to be compelled to eventually pressure the United States to leave the region. I think, first of all, when you have your military infrastructure being destroyed, all the bases that the U.S. had are being destroyed. We're talking about $100 billion worth of infrastructure. That means that when this ends, the U.S. can't just simply return. There's nothing to return to. You've got to rebuild. And the Gulf Arab states just aren't going to let them rebuild. The Gulf Arab states saying, don't come home. We don't want you. And it's not just the military, it's the diplomatic. We get back to the embassies. We have huge embassies in these regions. Why? Because the embassies are used for a variety of things, defense contracts, CIA presence. These embassies are being shut down and destroyed. And again, when this war ends, the U.S. is going to have to rebuild embassies, and nations are going to say, well, you don't get to have that prime property anymore. We'll give you, the one house lot on the end of, South Street. I think what we're seeing is the strategic defeat of the United States being played out before our very eyes.
And Sabby, if I could use that unsavory metaphor a little further, you will forgive me. And if Saudi Arabia, if Saudi Arabia is a side chick, Ukraine now is nothing but a cheap hooker who's addicted to crack, and you gave Uncle Sam the clap. That's all you are now. He can't stand you. He doesn't even want to see you again. That's all Ukraine is, a drug addicted hooker. It's ridiculous. With venereal disease. That's what literally Trump called what's his name today? P.T. Barnum. He says, yeah, old P.T. Barnum's giving them money. You get nothing anymore. You're not getting any money. You're not getting any weapons. And you know what? Europe is going broke. They're screaming around, where can we find gas? Oh, geez. Europe is not going to give you $90 billion. They're not giving you anything. It's over. You're going to get surrounded in a cauldron. Zelensky, you should be on the phone right now with Moscow saying, please have mercy on us. Ukraine is finished.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, I have to show this part. This was probably the most crazy thing I heard earlier today. U.S. troops were told Iran war is for Armageddon, return of Jesus. Apparently, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but apparently troops were told that Donald Trump said he had been summoned by Jesus to bring forward Armageddon. And this is why I point to this. Professor Jing has been talking about this as well. The U.S., I feel like Donald Trump knows the U.S. Can't win, but he's willing to, I feel like he's willing to sacrifice American troops for Israel. Scott?
Well, clearly he is willing to sacrifice American troops for Israel, but he's also willing to sacrifice American security and the security of our allies. The only ally he's not willing to put at risk is Israel. Although Israel is, when we suffer a strategic defeat, Israel will be put at risk. I can't beat Garland's crack hoe reference, so I'm not even going to try. But the reality is that Europe is done. I mean, Europe committed economic suicide by cutting itself off from cheap Russian energy. And now they've been paying the price with higher energy costs. Their energy costs are just going to go through the roof right now. That $90 billion that Ukraine thought they were going to get, it's gone because there is no money anymore. Europe is literally done. We now are seeing Europe starting to say, we need to take another look at Russian energy. Imagine that. Europe just a week ago was saying, we're in for our, 450th round of sanctions, and we're going to shut down Russian energy and all that. And now Europe's saying, we need to take another look at Russian energy because they are facing literal economic catastrophe. In the eyes, what you started off with this story about the American commanders speaking about Armageddon and stuff. This is a disturbing trend that's been happening for some time now. You guys may not remember General Boykin. He was a Delta Force squadron commander, wounded, and in the Black Hawk Down thing in Somalia. Went on to become a general officer. He was notorious for talking about the Crusader mentality, especially after 9/11, and that we were a Christian crusading nation going after the infidel, things of that nature. At that time, he was put in his place. But today, we have a Secretary of Defense that literally has Crusader crosses tattooed on his chest. And we have a nation of Christian Zionists and evangelicals who, have this end of days philosophy. And it's very bad because the military is not supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be apolitical, and we don't have a state religion. But now we have, commanders now. I mean, the Air Force Academy was one of the worst. For a while there, the Air Force Academy was literally a Christian cult. Cadets would come in, and there were secret Christian societies that you have to become a member of, hazing, the whole works. Because these Christian fundamentalists had taken control of the U.S. Air Force. But they've taken control of, for instance, U.S. Army Special Forces, Special Operations Forces have become sort of a Christian death cult. And now we're seeing that commanding officers are the same way. This is not what we should be doing. We shouldn't be rallying around, a God is great, type mentality. We aren't the Crusaders. We're Americans. And we should be defending the Constitution, not preparing for Armageddon.
And just to let people know, so because the supreme leader has been killed, they were really needs to be said is obviously they don't want them to pick a new leader. They want the West to decide who that leader is going to be, I would say. But then also that I do think there has been, they underestimated Iran. Some of these hits that I saw that Iran made, like, were powerful hits. And for people who are not aware, the Iron Dome doesn't protect everything. Missiles can still get through the Iron Dome. I saw Tel Aviv get some pretty powerful hits as well. So Iran has just been pow, 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 firing back. And that is, of course, in response also to the 150 something schoolgirls that were killed by the U.S. and Israel. I pass to you, Garland.
Well, what we're seeing now is that the air defense, and this has been discussed now for several years, particularly in light of the performance or lack thereof of the Patriot air system, air defense systems in Ukraine, and that is that the U.S. and the Western air defense systems are woefully lacking. They're just not that good. They haven't worked well, and now they've gone into a major conflict with a country that has a significant offensive surface-to-surface missile program with poor air defenses. And this could be expected. I believe that is why the people at the Pentagon were, trying to dissuade the civilian leadership from taking this action. I think they knew that they had some problems. I mean, keep in mind, they had 2 aircraft carriers and they went after the Houthis. And they got ran out of the Red Sea. These are the Houthis. This was not, Iran. So it should have been clear that basically with 1.5, one of them, okay, they had the Abraham Lincoln. The Iranians claim to have struck that. It seems to have left the area. We don't know for sure. But the other one, the Gerald Ford, the one that had the sewage problem, is off the coast of Israel. I think they're supposed to be using their airplanes to interdict incoming missiles. Not doing so great a job right now there either. And I think, and if you think about it, I mean, it shouldn't be surprising. Stopping an incoming ballistic missile, oftentimes they're moving at near hypersonic speed, at least high supersonic speed, is effectively like shooting a bullet with another bullet. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. And particularly when you're overwhelmed with drones and duds and flares and everything these days. So it's very difficult to do. They haven't been able to do it. It was a foolish move. And now they're paying what would be the obvious price. And now, I don't know if you've heard, supposedly the French are sending their only aircraft carrier. And I'm like, well, I hope they're bringing white flags, because that's the only thing that's going to be of any value. I mean, if it's the French, I'm thinking to myself, they're going to surrender now. I mean, that's what you would call the French in for. So you could surrender on their decks, but on the deck of the aircraft carrier. But at any rate, I would imagine right now, I don't think the Iranians are scared. I think they're just like, oh, good, we can't wait till it gets in range. I mean, if I were the French, I'd be like, I only got one. I can't spare it. Yeah, one last thing. You know what that is? The French are playing with fire. 30% of France, due to all of these regime change wars and the influx of refugees from countries that they attacked and screwed all up, France is like 30% Muslim now. I mean, what happens if they declare jihad or something like that in France? They'll burn the country down. These people are fools.
Yeah, I think Macron has his own problems he needs to worry about in his own country.
Beat the hell out of him most of the time.
In his own country. I know. But Scott, I was wondering, we heard about the death toll of the U.S. soldiers. I'm getting reports from other people in the background that is saying that the U.S. media is not honest about the number of American soldiers that have been killed. I've heard that number is way greater. What are your thoughts on that?
Before I do that, I just want to comment on the destruction of the Assembly of Experts building. It was empty at the time. So it was, all the people sitting there going, look, they're never going to get the Assembly of Experts has already elected a new supreme leader. It's Ali Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, handpicked by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard commander, at least put pressure on. He's far more conservative than his father. And, so there is a new supreme leader in place. So reflect on Donald Trump's ridiculous rambling about, well, I killed the first wave, the second wave, third wave's up. I'll pick the next leader of Iran. They're calling me to find out. I mean, the man is delusional. And the Iranians, there will be no regime change. Their constitution has kicked in. It's a constitutional process, and the Constitution has done what it's supposed to do, provide a vehicle of succession. So there's now a supreme leader. The Assembly of Experts worked. But the other point is that we bombed a building. Everybody's looking at all the imagery coming out of Iran right now of things going boom. We're bombing empty buildings. I just want everybody to understand that. Our target deck appears to be based upon bombing known locations or locations that are suspected of something. For instance, we're blowing up missile production facilities. But as an Iraqi minister once told me, the last time we were in the business of blowing up buildings in the Middle East, in Iraq, he said, Mr. Scott, you Americans are really good at blowing buildings up. You're really good. And we're really good at pouring concrete. But when you blow up a building, it's empty. We've evacuated it. And when our concrete cures, we put the stuff we evacuated back in, and we're back in business. And we can play this game as long as you want. And they did for many years. We never really effectively degraded their capabilities until we removed Saddam Hussein from power. Well, there won't be regime change in Iran. That is absolutely certain. And what we're blowing up today is just empty buildings. The Iranians have evacuated everything, whether it be production equipment or the 88 members of the Assembly of Experts. They're not in that building. They're somewhere else doing business. But our target deck is woefully inadequate. We're blowing up empty buildings. We're not achieving the results we want to achieve. The president's operating under illusions of success that aren't manifested in reality. So now we get to the question you spoke about the schoolgirls and the tragic death of these schoolgirls. How was that building struck? Let's go back and reflect on what I said. When I was involved in Desert Storm, that was a long time ago, but it was the last time we did a major strategic air campaign against a Middle Eastern country. The target deck that we were using to begin the conflict was very well developed, meaning that when I had a target folder of a place on the ground that was going to be bombed, it was backed by an intelligence folder that was very thick, meaning we had looked